Hello and welcome to our 11th episode of the Unofficial SAP on Azure video podcast. Today is October 1st, and together with Robert and Goran, we are here to talk about anything related to SAP on Azure. Today, we are recording a session that we had actually previously recorded 2 weeks ago, but we had some audio issues, and that's why we are just repeating the session today, and hopefully this time it will work. We have our special guest, Chetan, who will talk about Azure Active Directory and SuccessFactors integration. But before we go there, let's again quickly look back at what happened this week. So, hello, everyone.
Hello.
Hi.
Hi.
So we had Ignite, and obviously, like what we talked about last time, we announced a few sessions, or we highlighted a few sessions, and in the meantime, I actually had also time to watch a few more sessions, and one of the sessions that we would like to highlight is this session from Navneet about running mission-critical workload like SAP in Azure for business resilience. In this session, Navneet talks about Azure in general, some of the components, why it makes sense to run really mission-critical workload, what specific virtual machines we have available in Azure to really run, for example, something like Azure. So I think this is definitely also a very, very interesting session to watch. Another one in this similar context, obviously, of running SAP workload in Azure is this session by Irene about unlocking cost savings. So I think Robert already in previous episodes talked about how to look out for some of these cost savings that we can have in Azure, and obviously here, Irene is also talking about this. So another quick session. So all these sessions are like 30 minutes or less. So I think also something interesting to watch out. And then a last one is about migrating. So Jeremy is talking about how you can actually migrate SAP work, or not only SAP workload to Azure. And he highlights, or he talks about one specific customer, Kenna Metal, who also migrated their SAP environment from on-prem into the Azure cloud. So again, I think an interesting session to watch. And then, obviously, we talked about this before. Chetan, who you'll see live, or more or less live in a few seconds, he also had a session during Ignite. I think, Chetan, I have to admit I haven't watched it yet, but I think you also talk about the Azure Active Directory and SuccessFactors integration. But I think now, obviously, you'll get a personal insight from him as well. So before we go to Chetan, there's one brand new blog by Martin. So previously, Martin already had talked about Principal Propagation from Azure Active Directory, SAP Cloud Platform, and now he basically extended his blog. He talks about really the full end-to-end Principal Propagation, starting from a user that logs in an application using Azure Active Directory, really down to an SAP system on-premise. There's also a nice or a fairly full architecture overview that talks about the flow. So you really start with an application on Azure Active Directory, and then there's this full authentication flow that really goes down to you don't see it here, to your SAP system, which is running on premise using the SAP Cloud Connector. So I think that's a very, very important, very interesting scenario right now. And like always, Martin has put a lot of effort in this. So there's a very, very detailed documentation how to get started. And I think it's definitely worth to check out and and try it out and do it by yourselves. So one last topic that was also, or that we just stumbled across, is a so-called Microsoft Digital Defense report that was just released last month. And it's a fairly big report. It's like 88 pages. But what I like there a lot is that Microsoft provides some insights about how we react to certain security attacks, and how do we get these informations. What happened in the recent month, especially now with COVID-19, for example. How did scammers use this information or use the situation to try to hack, to influence using spams, prepared emails and stuff like that. So I think this document provides a really nice overview. So let me actually jump, for example, to the COVID situation. So you can see the cybercrime activities, and obviously there was a spike in March, or actually here in March, but then also in June, and you can see that a lot of things happened in the US, while, for example, when we look at the UK, where COVID-19 had a different flow or impact, the attack vectors were also quite different. So it's a very long report, like said, but I think it's definitely worth to take a look and maybe also learn some of the things that Microsoft detected there, how Microsoft is monitoring these informations or analyzing these information, and then also making some actions out of this. At the end, there's also an actionable learning sessions with some recommendations. So use multi-factor authentication, go passwordless. So I think a lot of things that obviously are also in Chetan's domain when it comes to Azure Active Directory and some of the functionalities that we can obviously also use in the context then of SuccessFactors. But in general, I just thought this is a quite interesting report. So maybe it's also interesting for some of our listeners. With this, I think, Chetan, maybe you can quickly introduce yourself, and then I'm really looking forward to the presentation and the demo that you have prepared.
Yeah, hi everyone. My name is Chetan Desai, and I'm part of the Azure AD PM team, focusing on our inbound integrations with HR systems, and also how we integrate with the SAP Cloud Platform in terms of provisioning users and automating the access lifecycle management there. So with that, I'll have a slide deck. I'll share my screen and let's walk through what we are doing in this space of SAP SuccessFactors and cloud platform integrations. Let me know once you can see my screen.
Yep, we have it.
Yeah. Okay, awesome. So in terms of agenda, I was going to focus on our SuccessFactors inbound integration features and benefits. We'll deep dive into the tech details there, how to deploy the solution, followed by a demo, and I'll leave behind some resources that you can use to further explore this solution. Okay, so with that, first let's talk about the motivation and context of why we built this feature and what problems these addresses. And with that, first, let's take a look at how SAP customers have different SAP solutions and how Azure AD fits into that whole story of enabling hybrid scenarios. So what you see here is a typical SAP customer landscape where you have SAP SuccessFactors maybe as the HR system. You have on-prem SAP applications, you have cloud applications like Analytics, Marketing Cloud, and of course you have the identity authentication service and identity provisioning service from SAP. Okay, and you also have other non-SAP applications also in the mix. With Azure AD, we are trying to bring all these applications together in a way that you can manage single sign-on and provisioning from Azure AD. And what we recently announced is the general availability of our SuccessFactors integration with Azure AD, which means you can now directly bring in authoritative identity data from SAP SuccessFactors Employee Central into Azure AD. And then once that identity is in Azure AD, you can enable single sign-on for any applications that that person needs access to using Cloud Platform IaaS and Azure AD, where you configure Azure AD as the primary IDP or the corporate IDP, and IaaS serves as the proxy IDP. And I think the blogs that Martin has put together around Principal Propagation also show how these two systems can seamlessly communicate between each other, sharing tokens for authentication. Okay. And then another cool thing we are working on is a scheme-based integration with the Cloud Platform Identity Provisioning Service. What that means is that IPS provides a rich set of connectors for SAP applications, and we don't want to reinvent the wheel there and create provisioning connectors to all these applications that IPS already supports. So we provide a connector to IPS, which you can configure to any of these applications. Okay, so with that, let's deep dive into the topic of today, which is SuccessFactors Employee Central and its integration. So when you look at SuccessFactors Employee Central, you are essentially looking at the world of HR, where HR is responsible for hiring new employees, managing the changes that take place. It could be department level changes, job level changes, things like long leave, resignation, termination, which is also called as joiner, mover, leaver scenarios. And these joiner, mover, leaver scenarios impact the world of IT. So from an IT admin perspective, every time there is an joiner, mover, event that translates into a corresponding action of either creating an account, updating the account, updating the location, department, managing licenses, and so on. And traditionally, this has been done using custom scripts. Some customers are actually engaging IT help desk to create, update, and remove these accounts. I know a company which has a team of 11 help desk people to just manage this task of seeing who's got created in HR in SuccessFactors and creating an account for them in AD. And then some companies rely on SFTP or CSV file exports and import procedures, and there are some others who are using third-party provisioning tools. And when we spoke to the customers who are using these methods, we understood from them that there are problems with all these approaches in one way or the other. Like, for example, with custom scripts, there is an operational overhead. Oftentimes it happens that the consultant who developed the script no longer is working, and so managing that script becomes a problem. IT help desk has its own overheads, and it's prone to manual entry errors. Similarly, relying on CSV file exports and imports means that if one batch load fails, then maybe you would be out of sync for the next batch load, and you could have a backlog of CSV files to process. And finally, there are companies who also want to consolidate the costs and move to one provisioning platform for all the integrations. So with this feedback in mind, what we decided was we went ahead and created a more modern approach for integrating with SuccessFactors, which supports all the standard joiner, mover, leaver processes, and takes care of different scenarios, right from a new employee hire to termination, and also all the other processes in between, right from worker conversion, making sure that any manager changes that take place, those get propagated downstream, and so on. Okay. Yep. Was there any question?
So, yeah, basically it's an out-of-the-box integrated solution, A. B, it's a cloud service, which is a new modern way, an ideal way to have any possible solution here, right? No files copying, it's just a cloud service.
Absolutely, yeah. That's what makes it effective, and as you see in the slide here, for customers who are using P1 or E3 license, which most of our customers, it's just out of the box. They can start using this right away.
So we are actually somehow merging different responsibilities. So for one side, we have a business user in SAP SuccessFactors, this HR cloud, so to say, and we have this IT, which is more Active Directory part. Yeah, but one question: I mean, maybe it's wrong, but what is the leading system here from user content perspective? Yeah.
The leading system here is always SAP SuccessFactors, because we believe that is the authoritative source of all the employee data. However, there could be certain attributes on the user profile, like for example, phone number or email, which is an IT, which are IT managed attributes. So we provide the ability for the integration to write back those attributes to SuccessFactors.
Okay.
Because the error is in both sides between SuccessFactors and Azure Active Directory, what I see.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
So it's a flexibility. So you can do either in SuccessFactors or maybe they would do in Azure Active Directory and both sides would be synchronized.
Yeah, but you know, this is leading for a huge simplification of customer landscape. You know, in today probably most of the small applications are, you know, connecting directly to the backend systems because they want to show that they have the valid authentication mechanism and so on. But now those systems, because they in most cases don't need to have business data, they just, you know, want to authorize themselves against the valid identity provider. Now they can actually simplify that and go directly to Microsoft Azure because everything is in sync with this business repository from user perspective. And the landscape is much more simple than, you know, small application like, you know, opening garage and all the stuff, which have a list of users in their cards and all those stuff. I mean, you don't need anymore to go directly to backend systems. You can go over at Microsoft Azure and then rely on that fact that everything is already in sync.
Mm-hmm. That's right, and it's a great point, because with that, if you see some of our quotes that we have got from customers and partners in this regard, like the first quote there, in this case, the customer just had a big problem of making sure that job titles, location, manager data, this is in sync between SuccessFactors and Azure AD. And this deploying this solution help make sure that there's consistent HR data that is driving their IT and business processes.
Correct. Great.
And then for a partner, this is a big advantage because they don't have to get into the business of developing one more connector for another HR system.
Exactly.
They could just use this custom out-of-the-box connector here.
So, and for me, that's one of the most important factors here. I mean, I think every customer that has SuccessFactors, a lot of these customers obviously also have Azure Active Directory. And I think for all of these customers, that is an issue today. They have built these custom scripts, very much like what you just said before. They hired a consultant that created the script, and it's working fine and so on. But then the consultant leaves, and then all of a sudden the script is not working at some point in time anymore. And then what do? So with this is a standardized offering, and SAP is all about standardization, so to say. And with this offering, we really have this native integration that allows you to connect the two components that you have in your company anyways directly with each other without the need to have these, like what is here, this complex custom connectors. But it's already delivered by Microsoft and SAP. So I think that's really, really beautiful.
Native and supported, right?
Yeah, actually, yes.
So,
native and supported.
Yeah. Cool.
Okay. With that, yeah, let's go into a deep dive of the integration to see how do you go about configuring this and what are the prerequisites. So we're calling out the prerequisites here. The first thing is you need a SuccessFactors integration account that you can use with Azure AD. And this account needs to have the capability to invoke the Employee Central OData APIs and role-based permissions to read person, organization, and employment data, And in case you're interested in configuring the write back, then permission to write email and phone number back to SuccessFactors. Then the next prerequisite is you may want to add the Azure AD IP range to the SuccessFactors allow list. And then the next one talks about if you, so that there are two flavors of the integration. One is where you directly integrate it with Azure AD. And the second is if you want to integrate it with on-premises AD. And that's where if you want to directly integrate with on-premises AD, there is a provisioning agent that you have to deploy and configure on-prem. It's a lightweight agent that takes care of that last mile updates to the Active Directory. And then, as I said, the licensing requirement at a minimum P1 or EMS P3.
But that's also really important, I think, to highlight. So this is not only a solution that works with Azure Active Directory. So if I already have Office 365 and I completely got rid of all my on-premise estate, but even if I have an Active Directory on-prem, I can still use this functionality. So I can still use the whole onboard that, like what you'll show hopefully in a second, that a new employee is onboarded in SuccessFactors, and I get this information also in my Active Directory on-prem, which obviously is a very important requirement. Yeah.
Exactly. Yep. And then with that, what is the next question, logical question that comes up is what data we are pulling from SuccessFactors, right? So we pull in the person information, basic first name, last name, contact information, employment information, and job position information. That's out of the box. And then we also provide, I mean, one of the feedbacks we received during the public preview of the solution is that every SuccessFactors tenant, every SuccessFactors instance is different. You could configure different attributes, you could add custom attributes. So we wanted to provide a way that you can pull any attribute from SuccessFactors Employee Central. So we have a mechanism called JSON path, which is a standard way, just like XPath is used in the XML world. There's something called JSON path to work with JSON files. So we have a generic JSON path reader, which you can use to pull any attribute from SuccessFactors. Of course, the admin still retains control on what attributes they are willing to expose from the OData APIs. But as long as that permission is there, you can pull any data from SuccessFactors.
Cool.
OK, so let's look at a quick schematic of the components involved in this solution and how it works. So we have a service within Azure Active Directory called the Azure AD Provisioning Service. And whenever any data change happens in your SuccessFactors Employee Central, whether it's a new hire, update, or termination, the provisioning service is constantly polling this Employee Central to see if there have been any changes. And if there are changes, it gets those changes here as part of step 2. And then as part of step 3 and 4, it writes that change to your on-prem Active Directory. And then once it's there in the on-prem Active Directory, most customers already have AAD Connect, which they can use to bring that change into Azure AD. And then finally, the write back component, which is step 7, where we can write back attributes like email, phone number, even things like SAM account name or user principal name, which you want to send from Active Directory to SuccessFactors. This is very, very crucial for some single sign-on configurations to work. So we also allow you to write back those attributes.
So one question for this picture. I mean, if I go to 1, 2, 3, and I'm going over AD Connect provisioning agent to update the Active Directory, why I cannot go directly to Azure Active Directory and then rely on a synchronization between AD Connect and Azure Active Directory?
Oh, that's a great question. So the reason for that is if you see, I think a lot of our customers, I would say probably 70% of our customers operate in this hybrid mode where the on-prem Active Directory still serves as the source of truth for Azure AD. Yeah. And that's the reason why we write first to the on-prem AD and then into Azure AD. However, there is a configuration, and that's what my next slide was going to show, is we do recognize that you may have certain users who are cloud only and probably never need on-prem AD access. So in that scenario, you can directly integrate just with your Azure AD. And for those users, information workers who need access to on-prem AD, you can first integrate with on-prem AD, and then that same data goes into Azure AD.
Okay.
Cool. So full flexibility. Yeah, nice.
Yes, yeah, that's right. Okay, so let's see, how do you configure this solution? And so we'll take a look at some suites here. So we'll first take a look. Okay, if I'm a customer, I want to get started with the SuccessFactors to AD inbound provisioning, then you can get started in 7 steps. Let's take a look at those steps. So the first step is you would configure the provisioning agent. So as I said, this is a lightweight provisioning agent, and what it does is that it discovers all the domains in your setup and then registers those domains with your Azure AD tenant. And some decision points in this aspect is you want to know how many AD domains you want to integrate with. Are they all part of the same forest or disconnected forest? Because if they are disconnected forests, then you could deploy 2 provisioning agent sets. One set will talk to the first forest, and the second one will talk to the second forest there. So we recommend this provisioning agent supports a highly available architecture, which means that you can configure a cluster of these agents, and they will all be talking to the same domain or forest. Okay. Moving to the next step, the second step is where you establish connectivity with SuccessFactors and configure the OData API permissions. And this is where the SuccessFactors admin comes into the picture, where he can help you set this set the connectivity with SuccessFactors. Okay, once those 2 steps are completed, all the remaining work is actually within the Azure AD portal. And as we go through these steps, I will also bring up my Azure portal to show where you configure these steps. So step 3 is where you create the SF2 AD provisioning app. So I'm going to switch to my portal screen here. Yeah, so here what you see is the Azure AD portal, and I'm in the Enterprise Applications Azure AD App Gallery. And you see we have a node for all SAP applications that we support here for both single sign-on and provisioning. And under provisioning, we have 3 applications here: SuccessFactors to Active Directory user provisioning, Azure AD user provisioning, and write back. Each for the different scenarios we talked about. And the important point to note here is these are all independent apps. So let's say you're not ready today to do integration of SuccessFactors to AD, but you want to start with write back. You just want to make sure that all email and phone number is in sync between your Azure AD and SuccessFactors. You can get started with the write back application.
Nice. Yeah.
And deploy the Azure AD and AD later. Yeah. Okay. So this is where you go and you select this application and create this app. I've already created this demo app, so I'll go into the app here. And as you see, I've created this app, and then you go into the provisioning tab. And in the provisioning tab, when you go to edit provisioning option, so this is where you can download the agent binary, which you can download and install as part of that step 1 we showed you. Next is where you actually configure this connectivity. So here I have my SuccessFactors credentials here, along with the credentials to connect to my Active Directory. They are all present here. I have configured the on-prem agents. And once this agent is configured, the next step is where I go and configure the mappings. Okay, so if I switch back to slide here. So you have created the SF2AD app. We go to step 4, where we configure the scoping rules. Okay. So what are scoping rules? Scoping rules allow you to define which users from SuccessFactors you want to pull. Okay. And why is this important? Because you may your SuccessFactors instance may be serving a global audience, or it may be serving different subsidiaries. And maybe you want to first do the integration only with one subsidiary and then bring others later. Okay, so this is where you configure the scoping rules. So let's go to the app here. I click on provision SuccessFactors users, and you see here there is an option here called source object scope. Okay. And when I click on the source object scope, it will show me a panel where I can configure my filters based on different attributes in SuccessFactors. So here I'm getting users who belong to the department retail finance. Mm-hmm. Okay. Similarly, I can select any attribute here and use it to define my filter. Okay, it could be location, it could be division, it could be cost center. So these, you can use this to define your scoping filter. Mm-hmm. Okay, so I have a bunch of departments here in my scoping filter. Now, once I have defined my scoping filter, the next step is to configure the attribute mappings. What this means is, okay, this is where the decision point here is which attributes from SuccessFactors Employee Central you want to pull, which attribute you want to use as a matching identifier, which is typically to match records between the two systems. And then most importantly, what transformations I want to apply, such as I want to make sure that the user principal name is always first name dot last name at contoso.com. Okay, so all those transformations, how do you apply that? That's where you go into the same app and you specify here the SuccessFactors attribute and how it maps to your on-prem Active Directory attribute. Okay, and you can see here I have some transformations as well. So if I go into my configuration page for this app, you'll see when it comes to mapping, I can select these, at a high level, these 3 types of mappings where I could do a direct mapping, which means just bring in the value as is. I could do a constant mapping where that attribute is not there in SuccessFactors, but I know a constant value I want to set for this. And then the final one is what's called as an expression or the transformation mapping. And here you can use a set of expressions, and we provide out-of-the-box functions which you can use to actually create these mappings. So here I'm using the join function to concatenate the first name and last name. I'm using to check how to determine if an account is disabled. I'm using the active employments count, and if active employment count is 0, I'm disabling the account.
And Chetan, we do provide us, or let's say I really start from scratch. Yeah. We already provide a default mapping. So for example, if I look at email and mail, do we already provide a certain set out of the box?
Yes, yes. We out of the box, we ship a default mapping, and then you can further configure and customize it to your needs.
Perfect. Yeah.
So one question, you mentioned that the agent on the premise is able to work with complex forest or multiple forest from the domain side. So if I want to map that, for example, for complex forest or multiple forest, so I need to specify one more mapping here, or I need to define one more application once more for that specific.
Yes, great question. So there are 2 options to that. I mean, you could define the agent to point to the root node of your forest. Okay. In which case, the visibility of that agent is to the whole forest.
Okay.
But let us say if your organization with multiple subsidiaries and each subsidiary manages their own domain, so they don't want visibility at the forest level, they just want at the domain level. Then you may want to create multiple apps for this.
Okay, yeah. I get it.
And we've kept it very flexible in that regard, because we know it could In some customers prefer a centralized instance. We want to control everything. There's one central IT, but there could be decentralized IT as well. So we provide both options.
Okay.
Okay. And then I think a very common question from system integrators is, and even customer requirements, is that based on attributes like department or the affiliation, right? You want to so we also support that ability to route the user into a specific OU in Active Directory based on their requirement.
Okay, great.
Yeah, and then there's another mapping here which is called the select unique value operation. So you want to attributes like user principal name, you want to make sure that they are not duplicated and they are unique across the domain. So we provide a mapping called expression called select unique value, in which you can define your business template of how these and this attribute should be populated, and then we use that to when creating the user. And you can specify that this mapping should be applied only during object creation and not during updates or terminations. Okay. Yeah, so that's the step number 5. And once step 5 is complete, you're ready to turn on provisioning. A pro tip here is that there is a new feature that we recently introduced. It's called the provision on demand feature. What this allows you to do is, if you go back here, there is something called provision on demand. And after you have set your scoping rules and mappings, you can test if your mappings work for a specific user. So you can just enter a user ID here and then click on provision and see if that works for the user. So you know you're good to go.
Cool, yeah. So an easy, quick test to see if my user gets replicated, if all the configurations is correct. It's nice, yeah.
So once you have provision on demand turned on, once you have provisioning turned on, next question that comes is, oh, how do I know everything is working well? If there are errors, what do I do? So what we recommend there is we recommend that you configure log analytics. So we have something called as provisioning logs, which we feed, which can be fed into a log analytics stream, and you can use Kusto and Azure Monitor to report on that and create your own alerts. For example, for scenarios when new users are created, or when some creation fails, or when some termination fails, because maybe that's the most important event you want to track. So you can configure all that, and in future we'll also be releasing pre-built workbooks for this provisioning scenario.
Yeah, would be nice to have some kind of examples, or already, as you mentioned, pre-provision run books, just as an easy onboarding way for this additional nice scenario.
Yes, we are working on it, and you'll see it out there soon. Okay. So with those 7 steps complete, let's see. Yeah, these were some attribute transformation capabilities wanted to share with you, which we already discussed in our mapping screen. So let's go into the demos now. So I have set everything up, and my first demo scenario is a new hire who's joining the shared services department as a customer service agent. And what IT says is that whenever a person joins shared services, create the account in the shared services OU, generate a unique UPN, and make sure that the manager reference is resolved. Okay, so let's take a look at how that scenario plays out here. So I'm going into the SuccessFactors admin console as HR admin and hiring Henry Blake, who is the new employee. And if we take a look at Henry's profile here, we see his basic personal information, and then we go to employment. And things to note here is the person is in the position of a customer service agent joining the shared services department, and his manager is James Patrick. We run the SuccessFactors to AD provisioning here, and we open the provisioning blade and we see the provisioning logs, right? So I told you this is where we show you details of the users that were created, updated, and so on. So we see a create record for the user here. That user Henry Blake was created in AD in that parent distinguished name in that OU. And we got all the attributes right from department, title, user principal name. These were all attributes that the provisioning service got from SuccessFactors. And you see Henry's profile here in Active Directory. And we can take a look at the timestamp. The user was hired on 8/17, and on the same time, in the next sync cycle, we see the user's data coming in from SuccessFactors. And the most important thing is we also see that the manager reference has been resolved. And the unique UPN and SAM account name are also generated for Henry. Okay, so with this, you can see how you can quickly onboard new users from SuccessFactors. Mm-hmm. Okay. Next scenario we'll look at is the department change. So we have a user, Martin Snow, who moves from shared services to the information technology department. So we'll see here, same scenario. We go into SuccessFactors Employee Central first and look up Martin's record. And we check the position. Martin is in the customer service agent, in the shared services team, and reporting to James Patrick. Now we will click on the edit icon there to, before that, we take a look at Martin's profile in AD, where we see the same data is reflected. Okay. Now we hit the edit button there to edit the position of this user. And from customer service agent, we will change the position to analyst in the IT department. So you see all those fields have got updated in SuccessFactors, and the new manager is Joe Flores. And we'll now run the SuccessFactors AD sync job. And you will see that if you do the same procedure, you open the provisioning blade, you go to the provisioning logs. We see an entry of update for the user Martin Snow, and that has been updated in AD, and only the attributes that have changed will be pulled, and you will see that data come into AD.
Would that update jobs run immediately after the change in SuccessFactors, or you run them periodically at a certain point of time?
It is run periodically, so we run the incremental sync runs every 40 minutes.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah. So what it does is every time we run the sync, we maintain a timestamp as a watermark since the last time we got the changes in. Yeah. And the next query, we proceed from there. So we only bring in those delta changes. And there are sometimes, some customers also, you have the option to override that and initiate a full sync again to just make sure that if there are any changes that have missed, or you want to get all users again, then you can run a full sync as well. With that, let's go to the last demo scenario, which is about employee separation. So here, Judy Baker, she retires from the retail forecasting department, and we'll see how this translates to the AD user getting the AD account getting disabled. So here, Judy is part of the retail forecasting department, and we see the same AD account. And now we're going to use the termination action and specify a last day of work. And we'll allow it to go through the approval workflows within SuccessFactors. And once the employee status is set to retired, the sync job picks this data. And we'll see, again, we go into the provisioning logs. We see that there's been an update. The key thing to note is we are not deleting the account here in AD. We are disabling the account because we recognize that in most companies, the process is that you disable the account first, and then maybe 30 days after you want to delete the account, or maybe move the account into another disabled OU and so on. Okay. Yep. So those were all the demo scenarios. We know there are different deployment scenarios that could play out. I'll just pause here. Any questions?
How would generally, I mean, there are many components here, which talk to each other. How about general security here? What could you say? I mean, they have some protocol, security of the protocols. You store the information about access to success factors. So where is that stored, for example, those kind of stuff?
Okay. Yeah, great question. So let me use this slide to explain. So in terms of security, our connection, so we maintain the credentials to SuccessFactors. So that is your service account credentials. So that is stored in the Azure AD secret store. It's stored in an encrypted format and never exposed. We are working as part of our future releases. We are also working on adding support for OAuth based authentication. So instead of basic authentication, you can use OAuth. A best practice we recommend in this case is to configure the IP whitelisting feature, use the IP whitelisting feature in SuccessFactors to only whitelist those Azure AD IP ranges, which will communicate with SuccessFactors.
Yeah, makes sense.
Yeah.
Just you put a smaller, just precise range that you need from the AD. Yeah.
Right. And then in terms of our communication with the provisioning agent, so this is so the provisioning agents communicate with Azure AD over Azure AD service bus, and there is it's only the Azure AD tenant can talk to the provisioning agents. Okay. And you cannot just send a request to the provisioning agents. There is a certificate-based authentication between the two systems. And for the provisioning agent to AD domain, this is something managed on-prem. You create a service account and you give the service account the permissions to only update those OUs in which you want to manage the users. The provisioning agent doesn't require full domain admin credentials. You can lock it down.
Okay.
Yeah, and in future, we also plan to add support for the GMSA accounts, which are more like managed service accounts.
Yeah.
Any other questions?
No.
Okay. Yeah, so I wanted to just share some of the deployment scenarios we have seen. Yeah, the most simple deployment scenario is where you're integrating with a single domain. We also support the ability to configure with multiple domains. And I think to the question asked previously, you could either have an app per domain, or if you point to the root domain with referral chasing turned on, you can also just have one app for all of these. And then if you have disconnected or disjoint forests, then we recommend configuring 2 sets of provisioning agent groups. And then there are scenarios like merger acquisition scenarios where you want multiple support for multiple SuccessFactors tenants and similarly multiple AD domains on the other side. Yes, we support that as well.
Cool.
Yeah, so a lot of thought has gone into bringing this feature to our customers and making sure it caters to all the various permutations and combinations of deployment and other scenarios. This slide just talks about the key features and benefits that customers are realizing with this feature.
Very nice, yeah.
Yep. And with that, I think I'm to my last slide here, which where I leave behind some learning resources and references, which you can also add to the description of the YouTube video.
Absolutely, because I guess a lot of customers that are listening, they have SuccessFactors, they have Azure Active Directory, and so I guess a lot of them would be very interesting to test this out. So I think we have tutorials here, we have documentations there to really help me get started and yeah, test it out, this scenario.
Yes.
Great. Perfect.
Perfect. Yeah.
I mean, it's a beautiful topic. I mean, maybe a little bit not so much emphasized, in my backend world, SAP on Azure. but extremely important for every day-to-day. I mean, single sign-on, crossing, being flexible, synchronized. I mean, excellent, very valuable. Yeah.
Oh, perfect, Chetan. I think this is really helpful. And as you said, we will just take these notes and put them also in the description of the video so that everyone can access them easily and give it a try. I think it's definitely worth it. If you have SuccessFactors, if you have Azure Active Directory, just test it out.
Yes, absolutely.
Maybe just any, if you're allowed to say, any plans future for other SAP components integration scenarios above and beyond this SuccessFactor?
Yes, there are. We are looking at, as I showed in the previous slide, I mean, one thing is through SuccessFactors identity provisioning service, we want to make sure we support provisioning into SAP applications, the different SAP cloud applications. And then I think another key component, especially from a HR inbound user provisioning scenario we have seen, is the ask for integration with Fieldglass, SAP Fieldglass.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Because that's used for a lot of contractor management. We do want to also support that, and also the ability to, some customers don't want a direct connection to SuccessFactors and would like a staging SQL table support. So we are also looking at exploring a generic HR integration mechanism as well.
Okay.
Cool. So you don't stop.
Oh yes, there's a lot of things to be done here. Yeah.
Nice.
Yes.
Good. Perfect. I think with this we are at the end. Chetan, thank you so much for joining again. So hopefully the audio worked this time.
Yeah.
I hope to see you again sometimes, maybe when we have the Fieldglass or something similar. So yeah,
yes.
Thank you very much. I think that was very insightful.
Thank you again for having me.
Good. With this, thanks everyone, and talk to you next week.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.